Lawyers of Reddit, what's the dumbest thing you've seen take place in front of the judge? People finding religion in front of a judge at sentencing. The judge would always respond with, "God may have forgiven you, but the state has not." That judge was a boss. Firm, fair, and a total badass. To be fair, religion has no place in the justice system. I was absolutely shocked when I saw a true crime documentary which showed a massive inner-city police office with a big sign saying, "We work for God," attached to a senior person's door. This was 2012 Philadelphia, not 1930s Chatchahoochee, Wyoming. One guy I saw said, "Your Honor, I haven't been drinking anymore. I have been clean for 6 months, God is my witness." The judge responded, "Well, a lot of people say that, but the funny thing is, not once have they ever been able to bring him in to testify." Attorney, when was the last time you did drugs? Defendant on stand, checks watch. I had a judge ask my client if he could pass a drug test. He answered he could, and was sure because he hadn't smoked in 30 days. Case had been pending for 4 months. DUIDWAI drug defendants show up to criminal court with beer weed fuck the police t-shirts constantly. Or their pockets. It's like, dude, this isn't your first, second, or third trip to the courthouse. You know there is a security screening at the entrance. Maybe it's not the best idea to put your drugs through the X-ray scanner. Which is even more amusing because such substances wouldn't set off the metal detector if kept on their person. In Missouri, attorneys are allowed to walk around the metal detectors if you just flash your bar card. One of my friends had an early hearing on a Monday and was running late, so he just threw his wallet and keys and phone and everything into his briefcase and practically ran into the courthouse. Flashed his bar card, got in, had his hearing, came back to the office, and only then realized that he still had a joint in his wallet from the weekend. Ended up taking the rest of the day off to go reevaluate his life and thank the flying spaghetti monster that his life wasn't ruined because he was running late and rushing. I'm doing jury selection on a civil case in California. It is going to be a long trial, 6 weeks, so the judge is giving jurors a lot of latitude if they claim any hardship for serving that long. After about 30 minutes of voir dire, which ended up taking 3 days and several panels, one guy stands up and says in very broken English that he can't follow. The judge asks him if he speaks English well enough to render a fair verdict, and he looks confused and says, "No." The judge thanks him for his service and dismisses him from the panel. In perfect English, accent now gone, he says, "Thank you very much, Your Honor. Where should I put my badge before I leave?" Judge found him in contempt and ordered him to stay for jury duty for the next week. Usually you just stay for 1 day. If you don't get picked for a jury in that day, your service is over. Saw one defense attorney demonstrate twerking during closing arguments of an assault with intent to kill trial. Part of me wants to make up my own story for this, but please, how exactly did that come about? The case involved an alleged slashing by one dancer of another with a glass bottle. You see, ladies and gentlemen, my client, who was twerking like so, twerk, twerk, twerk with both hands on knees, couldn't have had a bottle in his hand. It was more what didn't take place. I was working for the DA's office, and we had a guy scheduled to appear for a vandalism charge. The guy had a long history of minor offenses, but the judge was in a lenient mood that day, so the guy was probably going to get off light. At the scheduled time, he hasn't shown up. His lawyer tells the judge he hasn't heard from the defendant that day. We wait 10, 20, 30 minutes. At the half-hour mark, the judge is furious. She angrily tells the lawyer to get out and find his client and get him before her, no matter what it took, or she'd rain hell down upon the defendant. An hour later, the lawyer slinks back into the courtroom. The judge sees him and interrupts another lawyer to call him up to the podium. The poor lawyer proceeds to tell us that the defendant didn't show up because he was actually sitting in jail 2 counties over, having been caught trespassing the night before. Needless to say, that defendant got the book thrown at him. Curious, is a lawyer held personally responsible for who they're representing like that? I feel like if I was defending someone who was late, I wouldn't feel an obligation to ensure he shows up. That's his obligation. No, judges that do this are arrogant a-holes. We are not responsible, nor is it our business to make sure they appear. The judge should have simply issued a warrant and told the attorney to have a nice day. I was in front of a judge for oral argument, and the other side, pro per, failed to show up. The judge called him and made him argue against our motion while driving and on his cell phone. The judge spoke for a minute setting up the arguments for the guy, basically leading him to the core argument, and what he should be saying if he wanted to get our motion denied. After a few moments of silence, the guy responds, "Judge, I'm too stupid to understand what you just said." That ended the argument quickly and in our favor. We all forget to turn off our phones in court, but I once faced off against a lawyer whose phone rang right while he was in the middle of making his final submission to the judge. Even that might have been forgivable if he hadn't interrupted his submissions to take the call. In the UK, this would be contempt of court, and the lawyer would face criminal charges. My favorite contempt story is the defense lawyer who sat his associate at the table next to him and put the defendant in the gallery. When the prosecution's main eyewitness, a cop, identified the assistant lawyer as the criminal, the defense lawyer tore him a new one. I believe he won the case, but the judge still held him in contempt for not informing the judge about the stunt beforehand. I swear I was arguing a preliminary hearing against a defense attorney from out of town, and in the middle of one of his direct examinations his phone rings and he fucking answers it. "Hello? Oh hi, listen, I can't talk, I'm in court." "What?" "No, I'm in court. I'll call you back." "Sorry, Judge." The look on the judge's face was priceless. Then when it was time for him to make closing argument, he looks at the judge and goes, "One more time, Judge, what were the charges?" "DUI, dude. Just DUI. How did you get through this whole thing and not realize there was only one charge, and it was DUI?" Non-US lawyer, we once had a client who was arrested for fraud. The problem was his arrest warrant was riddled with errors. Half the time his name was changed to someone else's, the dates were wrong, and it ended by declaring the arrest warrant on the basis of robbery, not fraud. The client was actually, egregiously, guilty of committing fraud, but he walked a free man because here the arrest warrant has to be written with the accused full name, the exact crime he is being accused of, and the date and place of said crime. Lesson to DAs and judges: don't copy-paste without proofreading. Husband and wife are going through a divorce and are having a custody hearing. Basically, the attorney A is representing the father who wants to be able to have some rights to see his son, but mother has already been awarded full rights. Father's attorney is super passive-aggressive against the mother's attorney, really rubbing everybody the wrong way. Eventually the mother's attorney snaps and quips back, "If he was as good of a father and husband as you claim, we wouldn't be here, would we?" Father's attorney has some dumbass reply and the judge starts losing his cool. Another few comments later, and the judge ends the hearing. No adjudication, just takes the filings and demands that the parties get out of his chambers. This wasn't in the courtroom itself. In the hallway, the mother's attorney loses his shit. Starts yelling at the other attorney. He yells back. They get into a full-on yelling match in the courthouse. Then the father, who is 230 lb plus, steps between them to entreat them to chill out. Starts telling both his lawyer and the wife's attorney that they are acting like children. People in the courthouse are giving them looks, assistants peeking out of doors, and the wife steps in. "You're both acting like a couple of kids. Soon to be ex-husband, and I can handle this on our own." Then the couple, who is in the middle of a vicious divorce, step aside, talk for a few minutes, and walk back. "He's going to take son Tuesday night. You two," and she points at the attorneys, "do whatever you need to do with the judge." I don't know what happened with that case, but it warmed my heart to see a father step between the two trained legal professionals and impress his wife so much that they were able to work things out. The sad part? The husband's lawyer saw it as a win for him because his conduct put his client in a position to break up the fight and show her that he is a great guy. A lot of clients want to speak up, but "Judge, you don't understand," but giving them the look of death and a jab in the ribs usually shuts them up pretty quickly. They're usually pretty okay. I found this gem doing some research one day, quoted from the case. As is evident from the foregoing excerpt from the transcript, the judge would not permit the appellant to speak to the issue of judicial bias. The appellant was agitated. The judge was, no doubt, frustrated. This exchange culminated in the appellant choosing to disrupt the proceedings by commencing to disrobe. The appellant described her actions to the judge as a form of nonviolent protest, which would continue until the judge would hear her motion for judicial bias. Wish I was there for that one. One of my pro bono family court clients called the judge a bitch to her face. I'd almost started laughing out of the sheer absurdity of the situation. This is the same client who stormed out of multiple family counseling meetings saying we were all conspiring against her, and the same one who, when I told her she had to pass a drug test, asked me, "Yeah, I can do that. Wait, hold up. Is ice a drug?" Ice is slang for crystal meth. The dumbest thing I've seen is a guy show up for not doing his community service in a shirt that said, "I'm not lazy, I just don't like to work." Judge asked him about it, and he said it was his only clean shirt. Everybody had a good laugh, even the judge. "I'm not lazy, I just don't like to work." I agree with this guy 100%. A majority of people only work because they have to, not because they want to. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.